Here we go. Mountain Melter Adventure Series, Part 1, Part 2, Part 3. In other words, the binary, the quadratic, the quantum. It's a side hobby. It's a hobby. This writing thing, I've kind of slowed down on it a bit. So I'm going to do a quick summary. This is the Mountain Melter Adventure Series. I'm just going to go through each of the books. Volume 1, 2, 3. I got a Volume 4 percolating. And it's a fine line whether it's an extension of this one or a whole nother one as that goes. All right, yeah, what are we doing here? What are we doing here? So, running from ghosts. This is a 110,000 word manifesto. Let's read the back. This is the first installment of the Mountain Melter Adventure Series. Become hypnotized by the metronomic rounding of the seasons and cold heartbeat of the mountains. The flower's perfume has no form, but it pervades space. Likewise, through a spiral of mandalas, formless reality is known. About the author, J.C. Young lives in Girdwood, Alaska and enjoys being in the mountains on the ocean with friends and family. Yay, that sounds fun. So this book's funny. I wrote it when I was 24, and it was basically my memoirs at that point. Long story short, I had a complete nervous breakdown and fled to Canada on a moment's notice with my new Canadian girlfriend, which is all documented in here. But it's journal, so it's journal entries. And I say it's binary because I could go the other way. If I were to start in this book, volume 3, it's stacked on top of the other. So this is the zeros and ones of the story. This is the quadratic, like it's getting more complicated. There's more variables, but it's also more distilled and more explanatory. And then the quadratic, where time becomes kind of non-linear, non-local, acausal, but also affected. So I'm just gonna read the intro of this one. Oh, I flipped through the page. Where was I at? What's the exact date today? Read September 1990. Are we September 27th? What's the date? Oh, September 26th. Well, this is 24 years ago. Thad, Ryan, and I skied off the west shoulder of Goat Mountain. Bluebird day with 3 to 4 inches fresh on summer ice. We got into some steep AVI danger areas going up the shoulder. Skied from 5,500 to 3,000 feet. I do remember that. Wow, I wouldn't remember that otherwise than I had just written it and re-remembered it. That's pretty early season, September 27th, 1999. So that's what this is. It's like entries. And then I get into the actual, look at these entries. This is ridiculous. Once skied in Alaska, it was just a ski journal is what it was. Skied in Alaska, turned 35, and this goes on for like couple hundred pages. With a little more, some stories are a little more descriptive, but basically, as I was writing it, from age, here I am 20 years old, I'm bummed that I didn't get, from age 16 to, this starts when I'm 18. From 16 to 18, I had some epic mountain adventures that were completely harebrained. I didn't write them any down. So this is day-to-day journals, but as I was writing them as journals, I knew that I was going to publish them. I was like, it became the idea after a couple years, but then the book evolved into more existential navel gazing. What's this talk about? Consciousness is the energy required to describe an object. Gravity uses strong to weak to nuclear energy. Simulation to emulation. In my mind, I simulate where I want to be in much detail as possible. All actions from simulation to output fall into places needed. Bell theorem, anthropic principle, relativity, uncertainty principle, infinite time/eternity. Yeah, that sort of stuff. But I got really descriptive. So basically, it was a manifesto / dissertation / grand unified theory. So this is my grand unified theory that I wrote when I was 24. And in that, it was interesting because by the time I took time to write it, I had already fallen from grace, so to speak. Like I'd already flown too close to the sun, and then kapow, fell into the realm of humans and politics. And the politics is what spurred on the nervous breakdown, which spurred on the intense introspection. and research and all that. So I broke down, but I also put it all in the context of skiing. That's why we're in the Ski Factory. We're getting some backstory here. That's what we're doing. So I got this whole intro going on. Where's the page? All right. So I broke it down into different chunks of freedom, 1 through 8, all through the context of skiing, and then specific dates when things specifically happened that put me into this supposed place on the hierarchy of self-actualization. But then I had to fall, and that's when the fall was like, that's great. This is awesome. So I'm just gonna read the basics. The chapters are broken down. This is 8 chapters, basically. Physical freedom, late 80s, early 90s. Skiing experienced as fun. Exciting to the senses. Heightened sensation and awareness. Skiing seen as a special occasion. Challenging outlet for a little kid. 2, 1993-ish, so I was 13 or so. Escapist freedom. Physical enjoyment as fun while emotional development as hobby. An increase in ability equated an increase in fun. Escape from developing social pressures of school, etc., but also created a grounding effect. And that actually got me through everything, as it still seems to, which is kind of ridiculous. Chapter 3, Chunk 3, Societal Freedom, October 1996. So I'm 16 years old. Hobby develops into excuse for social non-participation. Superiority complex, becoming grounded in skiing as mean of self-identity. Yep. 4, Interior Freedom, July 10th, 2001. July 10th. What happened then? Find self as individual. Begin searching for interior motives, drives, beliefs, fears, prejudices. Who am I? Skiing becomes less grounding by means of keeping me out of trouble. It becomes more deviating as in distracting me from getting a real job, etc. I think that's when I broke my collarbone. That's what happened. It was the first time in my entire life I had to sit on my butt for 3 weeks, and that's what happened. I wrote this goddamn thing. This is why I keep busy. You know, that idle hands are the devil's playthings. 5, July 13th, 2003. So this is 2 years later. I'm just climbing this ladder of self-actualization. It's pretty hilarious, you know, the pretentious nature. Like, I'm completely aware of all that as I take a sip of my, what is this, AG1 something? I think Joe Rogan told me to drink this, so I am. No, Andrew Huberman, actually. 6, Hierarchy Freedom, January 19th, 2004. Oh, that was when I met Vesna. Pole shift and acquired logic. Perspective on my function of the whole. Saw big picture of politics, religion, and world scene. Complete decentering off cherished beliefs. Profound inquiry and confusion at every bend. That was a nervous breakdown, where everything I thought I knew just whoosh, fell apart. But it's all in here. I wrote about it day to day. It's pretty good. So you can see what it's like. So it's actually a roadmap to get you through it if you're doing it yourself. So I had written that was all volume 1, then volume 2 I had done a whole chunk, and then I recall I did a whole second chunk. And the original title of this book was Meditative Conclusions. Now it's Running from Ghosts, Mountain Religion. Chapter 7, Creativity Freedom, May 15th, 2004. This is 20 years ago, 19 years ago. Develop skills based in creativity to work towards sustainability. Understand principles of giving, receiving. Work on remaining grounded in something other than the physical. Yeah, it's a good idea to not have your entire self-identity wrapped up in something. Sustained freedom, October 17th, 2004. So as of October 17th, 2004, I was in sustained freedom. The eternal present, infinite moments of being. Application of the moment as experienced in extreme conditions to the moment as experienced anywhere, anytime. Oh, so that just basically means you're doing some gnarly thing. Oh my God, I'm gonna die if I don't turn perfectly right here, kadoosh. But then you've taken that heightened awareness that's derived from that self-created experience, and then you bring it back to the real world, to where like you're at the coffee shop getting a coffee, you're like, you know, yeah. So anyway, that's that book. It's pretty good, I think. It's like a coffee table book. If you read it, several people have read it straight through, and they're just like, what the hell did I just read? So, volume 2. How's this thing doing? Volume 2 is Secrets of Alaska and Other Places. And I basically took individual short stories that were originally written like skied mountain with Fred, like a 1-sentence little thing like I just read, and then I broke them out into like 3 to 5 page stories more readable. This book's more readable. That's more of a coffee table book. I'll just read the back. This is a collection of non-fiction short stories that chronicle my many adventures and misadventures while growing up in Alaska. Big mountain skiing, downhill biking, surfing, and extreme triathlon set the tone for this action-driven assembly of first-person observations. Version 1 recapped my life up to age 30 and the birth of my first daughter. Politics and religion are thrown into the mix as I flee to Canada with my bride-to-be and come to terms with life outside of Alaska. It's so interesting to just read that in one sentence and thinking about the years and years and years of like what that actually was. I wrote version 2 at age 40, so I did a whole chunk at age 30, yay. 10 years later, I had a whole nother decade of stories that I lumped into it. I wrote version 2 at age 40, so this is 3 years ago. I'm 43 right now. As it includes many stories from my 30s, my family grows as we move back to Alaska. I'm mature as an athlete, a father, and provider as my wife and I explore the world with our 2 young daughters. So this seems legit. If I were to be like, what's this guy talking about? So that's the quantum. Like I said, that's the binary, which is like it was all just like broken down into the base. This, they're like, it becomes more complicated. And then this, Starlight over David, is volume 3, and it is it's fiction. So the other ones are obviously non-fiction. This is fictional, where I take all of this stuff and cram it into a fictional story. Starlight over David is a supernatural thriller peppered with the delusions of grandeur and mysterious encounters. David and his companions embark on a misguided mission that inadvertently merges with the story of an ancient entity whose actions have wreaked havoc on humanity for millennia. Will David overcome all adversity and triumph in the face of evil, or will he be crushed by the weight of history and a predetermined fate? So basically, if you look at that other video where I was describing the universe to ChatGPT, I broke it down into, Jesus just represents the ego that had to be killed, and the 12 disciples are the 12 zodiacs, are the death of the ego as the person relates to the 12 disciples as it's broken down. So it's kind of an argument for astrology of all things. It's talking about the self, the Buddha. It's the Buddha, the self and the Buddha. The self needs to be killed with the Buddha. The Hindus, it's the Atman and the Brahman. For Freud, it's the ego to the superego. You gotta kill the lower bit, ascend. So that's what this whole story is, but I've wove it through 12 stories. So the main character is the ego, Jesus character, if you will. And then it's woven over 12 sub-stories over about 2,000 years as it ties to this person and his predetermined fate. And again, I did the same thing on this book. I wrote it like halfway through, and yay, it's done. And it's actually, the first book was called The Sails of the Devil's Ship. That's what I called it, The Sails of the Devil's Ship. Oh, I should go get the copy and actually show what it looked like. So I'm interjecting this clip secondary because I wasn't very clear, as I was saying before. So David's the main character whose character is being killed, essentially. Spoiler alert. But as told through the 12 different people, there's 12 different characters, there's 12 different star signs, then there's the 12 disciples, as their story is their description of the death of the main character, Jesus. So I've tied these all together, I think. Back to the original programming. Bam! Look at that. The sails, it's a Bosch painting of the plague. The sails of the devil's ship. Here's the back. Often mistaken for being the devil, an extraterrestrial creature is stranded on Earth for thousands of years, playing key roles behind the scenes of history. The multidimensional Nightwalker struggles to gain access to North America and utilize human hosts to meet his needs. Historical characters and timelines lead up to a dystopian future in small-town Girdwood, Alaska. So the original concept, so this was literally the first half of this book, and it was the whole idea that the devil comes to you through the vices of the ego, and it was the background voice and the literal voice, the entity, is it morphed from, that's the whole thing, is I morphed man's interaction with the devil causing trouble as it deals through man in different ways. And the Nightwalker is the Hawaiian legend of a spirit that's not been properly recognized, you know, in burial and being lifted, like properly sent off into the second life, the afterlife. So then they're stuck wandering around on Earth, in Hawaii specifically, being pissed off basically. And so I've got a lot of Hawaiian characters going on where they interpret the devil, this creature, as a Nightwalker, and the different cultures as they interpret it as different things, but it's the same thing. So, Mountain Altar Adventure Series. I'm sending the copies of these out. So if anyone wants any, I'm just sending these out. Like, I swear to God, like, they're just taking up space. So in the comments, if you want a pair, or if you want a pair of books, no, take whatever. Anyone wants any, I'm giving them away. And Terry, you got a set coming. So cool. Thanks for watching. What are we doing here? Ski building? Ugh, all right.